Hey everyone, Thursday Theolog. So we have a mailbag question today, and our mailbag question is from Joan. And Joan asks, You don't have to answer because you're a pastor, but it's about resting the land every 7 years. I have a friend who doesn't plant every 7 years. What about farmers? And if you had a garden, Pastor George, would you adhere to that? So first of all, I can't plant anything worth anything. I would kill anything I tried to plant. What Joan is referring to here is there's passages in Old Testament law that refer to letting the land fallow every 7 years, kind of mimicking. You have this with slavery and Jubilee as well, mimicking God's pattern of creation, right? Work for 6 years, rest for a seventh year, right? This is actually where sabbatical comes as well. People of CPC who eventually, if you guys keep me around long enough, I get a sabbatical, which means I get not a whole year, but I get whatever how many months off, right? That's where sabbatical comes from. Sabbath, right? Sabbatical. And so it's this principle of letting people rest after such and such amount of time. Big thing in Christianity, obviously, and in Judaism, because of course Sunday is our Sabbath, but also we have a principle of kind of having Sabbath rest. This is why I encourage even volunteers who volunteer all the time to eventually take time to rest. I think it's important. God gives it to us for a reason, right? It helps us to enjoy things, helps us keep from burning out, all stuff like that. But there's also these passages that talk about leaving the land fallow, right? Letting it rest. Now, um, uh, letting the land rest every 7 years. So it's interesting that Joan has a friend that engages in this practice. It's pretty interesting. It's not bad, right? Because it shows that obviously it has a practical purpose of letting the soil rejuvenate itself, but it also shows a theological purpose, right? That even creation deserves time to rest as well under God's care. And so, what about farmers? Well, the Bible has this principle, right? And you have to remember that when the Bible was written, most people were farmers. Very few people were not. There were some people who did some craft stuff, right? Pottery, stuff like that, fine crafts. Some people could be military or soldiers or something. Some people were nobles. Of course, you had the priests as well. Most people were farmers, though. And so, usually, Joan, what would happen is they would have several fields. So, a family would have several fields, and the way it would work is that they would um, work these fields in a way that so there would always be one available when a seventh year came, right? So that's how it kind of wet out. It doesn't mean that you like let all land fallow at the same time. Of course, you can't make things, but the point is that you have fields, or some people have fields that are working sometimes, and some that aren't working other times. And so the point is to have time for the land to rest, and of course, knowing that this is coming, the community could look out for people who especially needed food, or people could plan ahead and make sure that sections of their land were there. So it's interesting your friend doesn't do that on 7 years. It could be very simply that this is better used for us as a principle today than a hard and fast rule. So, of course, like no time under Christendom, really, were farmers ever restricted from planting, right? What this is supposed to do is it's supposed to show stewardship over creation, right? That's how we interpret it today. Now, I think in a lot of places that really could mean not planting on the land for a given amount of time. I think what you see, and I think we've learned this actually, our agricultural science has learned this, is that we aren't supposed to just uh, ruin the earth and consistently plant over and over and over and over and over, right? But rather, it's supposed to be a stewardship thing. We're supposed to care for the soil and make sure that we can still use it, because if we ruin it, then it's not good for a very, very long time. And so, of course, when we go into places that are still working on their agriculture, that's one of the big things that people try and teach them. So as a principle, it's good in order to show that we have care for nature, right? That we are supposed to let it sit and have stewardship, good stewardship over it. It is not a hard and fast rule today in the sense of, if you have a garden in your house, in the back of your house or whatever, that you can't use it on the seventh year. You might want to do that as a spiritual practice. That could be very beneficial, I think, as your friend does, because it reminds you that the earth is God's, not yours to do with what you want, right? And that we are just here to watch over it. I think that's really good. But it is not a requirement as long as you understand that you are a steward of the earth, not a master of it in the way that God is. So good question, Joan. It's and one that I not asked that often, so it's nice. Speaking of which, I am out of questions again. So if you have any questions, please email me, and I'd love to answer them. I was talking with someone recently who asked me a question, and the person was telling me that they didn't ask it because they thought it was a stupid question. But the question was a really good one. I think I'm going to talk about it next week. I just won't say who asked it. And it actually is applicable to a lot of people and a lot of situations and things that people wonder about and maybe are scared to ask me because they're, I know I have a reputation for being a Puritan, and I am one, but maybe it'll surprise you about my answers to some of these things. So, really, any question, love life, love to answer those. Dating advice, anything really. I have an open door. Of course, deep theological questions. I love those as well. So any question you're going to give me, I'd love to answer. So I will see you guys all on Sunday for worship and next week for more theologs. Peace out.